So thank you everyone for joining me. We have Adelaine, Maejor, and Jade. Each come from different areas and sectors, so I'm very excited for this panel. We have music representative, YouTube, a little bit of Broadway and music, and a little film, I guess, in some ways as well. So we have all the entertainment realms and content represented on this panel. So to start us off, we've talked a lot about the importance of using media as a way to create awareness and educate audiences on different causes, but use that platform, essentially harnessing it for good. Each of you are doing that in a very unique way. So to start off, maybe if you want to share a little bit about how you see using your platform to inspire change, and we can go from there.
Yeah, so I started a nonprofit about 3 years ago called Entertainment for Change, and its mission is to advocate and empower youth around the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. For a while, I live in New York, and I was running around kind of saying, I want to use art to change the world and bridge that gap, because I was an artist myself, and I find that art is the most powerful form of communication there is. It resonates on the deepest of levels. I'm specifically passionate about kids, and I go by the quote that children need to be taught how to think, not what to think. And art is not a mirror to reflect reality, but it's a hammer with which to shape it. So I was like, how can I do that? And then I came across the 17 goals and was like, this is a really awesome framework for what we're working towards globally to change the world, but to allow each individual to put their voice behind something specific, while also feeling unified. So then I started creating original content, starting with this song that's releasing, actually pre-releasing at this event, which I'm super grateful for. And then, it's releasing on Monday, the 23rd, and it's gonna be releasing online. It's a music video that showcases diversity and inclusion, and it's called that hashtag SDG Groove. And if you learn all the lyrics, you learn all the goals. So it's kind of inspired by Schoolhouse Rock, Bone Dance from Hannah Montana. I don't know how many references. That was my inspiration. But kids are super attached to like the dabbing and the Harlem Shake, and I'm around a lot of kids, so I was like, how can a piece of media actually engage them in a way that could challenge them and also inspire them and empower them and also speak their language, not feel like it's so much bigger than themselves, but also something attainable, something that they can have fun changing the world doing. So that's my passion.
Maejor?
Yes, so following off of what Jade just said, I discovered that music is a powerful tool. Music is something that a kid listens to at home when at night, and when they're in the bed, when they're when no one's around. It's speaking directly to them, to their soul, to their spirit. And so for me, it was just obvious that if I wanted to make an impact or change, music was the way I was doing it. I was producing music for a lot of people, writing in the industry, performing, and music was just such an obvious tool. For me, I struggled in the beginning because I wanted to make a difference, and I tried to do it through lyrics, through saying positive lyrics and whatever. For the people who were gravitating towards me, they didn't really want to hear that. They didn't really want to feel like they were getting preached to or anything like that. So that's when I started to go into learning about the frequency of the sound and how I can implement some positivity and expand people's consciousness through the energy of the music and through the frequency of the sound. And so that's how I'm making a change.
Well, and I think that's so powerful.
Yeah. I like what you said about people don't want to be preached to. So in the YouTube space, I started out as a viewer, and I would watch these people like Bethany Moda and like all of the OG YouTubers, and it was kind of like my escape. So watching videos about like makeup and hair and fashion and everything like that, that would be my escape from whatever I was dealing with at home. So I always try to be sure to have a positive, place in my YouTube channel, but also touch on subjects like mental health and subjects like girls supporting girls, and just not pushing it down people's throats, but also being raw and real so that the viewer can relate to you and understand that you're human too.
Well, I think that it's really powerful in the sense that it's clear that obviously whether it's film or music or different or video, that content has the power to tell stories, but also evoke emotion and energy. Like, it's no secret that if there's a room and everyone's in a bad mood or something, you play a really nice dance tune or something, and people just, their entire mood changes because the energy does propagate. And so using that for, to kind of, strategically in scenarios to help uplift communities can be really powerful. With that in mind, for those out there who may not have necessarily the largest platforms yet, but want to create awareness and maybe see the creative arts and media as a way to do so, do you have any advice for them on how they could spark the more micro movements, I guess, from your experience?
Yeah, I am a true believer on passion being contagious. I think that, like, you know, we are animalistic in nature. There's a lot of survival mechanisms that we have in order to cope with life. I loved kind of the range of panelists today and like mental health, and all of that is so key to balance through all of it. Creating content especially, because there's so much content out there, and it's like really hard to kind of gauge. Even the wise content out there is a little bit like, what is resonating with me right now? Because it's hard, because it's like that like, or how many comments are it on that piece of content? Is that what I should be resonating towards? What's fear? What's intuition? Kind of like figuring that out. So I would say, when you're passionate, like I am so passionate about changing the world and having fun doing it, and I'm really passionate about kids, and what you said about the energy, like that's why I made the hashtag SDG Groove like a fun dance thing, because like that's what, I mean, adults, I mean, we like to drink and play Jenga, like we like to have fun. So I think if we can keep that in mind while we're creating powerful content, changing the world doesn't seem so unattainable, and it feels like we're doing it together, and it feels like we're not against each other doing it. And I would say, if you're creating micro content or any content, if you're sincerely and genuinely passionate about the content that you're putting out there, you can't really go wrong, because that's the energy that you're putting into your content. So I think, yeah.
Well, it's really interesting, because we were talking a lot about energy, and conscious content is actually becoming a big kind of focus recently, and looking at it from that perspective of how it originally, I guess, started from like a sustainability perspective of how you share stories about positive media, but now it's becoming more just intentional content, I think, in some sense, of intentionally using the media, not just to put a video out every day because you need to, but because you're intentionally trying to share in a message, or have a specific outcome for the person watching it. Obviously, that takes a little bit more work in putting it together. So I guess moving with that in mind, like how, from a curator's perspective, how can we get more curators who have these platforms to think more consciously about their work? Because they are putting out regular media, they are putting it out into the world, and if we can have more conscious content, we can, well, obviously you can uplift more people. So suffice to say, how can we encourage more curators to think this way as well?
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, is to encourage other people in our community to do that. For me, we started something called Humankind, which is a documentary series about building compassion through storytelling. And so we want to be able to speak to people's hearts, to connect with their hearts, see a story of someone who you maybe wouldn't connect with usually, but through learning their story, you can start to see that you're the same as them. And I think that from my experience, through reaching to people's hearts, it inspires other artists, because artists, they love that connection, right? We want that. As an artist, you want people to see your videos, you want people to hear your music, you want people to, and when they see other people doing that and getting a serious connection because it's intentional, I think that inspires them to do the same.
And Adelaine, you've started some initiative you mentioned earlier, even just girls supporting girls. And so you've taken you've also done like merchandise and other things now to really kind of inspire and spread that message. How has that been? Because it's almost like an entrepreneurial venture as well. And so can you walk us through a little bit of that process of how to start an initiative up like that?
I think you need to do something that you're passionate about. So I always try to do these merchandise launches around something that's really near and dear to my heart. So just recently, this September, I launched a Girls Supporting Girls. It's like a teal hoodie because that's the color of ovarian cancer, the little ribbon, and a portion of every sale goes towards ovarian cancer. So I think, I don't know, just starting somewhere and like inspiring others will make a big difference, even if you feel like it's just you and it's just your social platforms. It's a ripple effect, and it'll affect everybody around you.
It's one of those things. It's essentially making good social change cool in a lot of sense, to be honest with you. The more you make it fun, like your video with the cool dance, I want to learn the dance. I asked her if she would teach me on stage. There was a no go on that.
Can we do that?
I would totally like
trust
to do
me,
it. If we could play the video,
I'll hit you up.
It teaches us how to do it, and I think it'd be super fun.
Yeah.
So I would like to challenge the panel. Well, we'll give them a couple minutes maybe to cue up the video. Hazami, if you could maybe help get the video up to teach us the dance. And we can do that as our finale, because I think I was a competitive dancer since the age of 3, so I've always kind of had entertainment in my experience, and I do think it's just a way to express, whether it's dance, music, film, video. It's a way to express ourselves, and sometimes expressing ourselves is actually a root of a lack of expression is a root of conflict, and a lot of the resistance sometimes we see in this world is if you just give individuals a creative outlet to be able to express their frustrations, get out those emotions in a constructive way. So I had an interesting conversation with an executive who was looking at doing a program for inner city kids who were having troubles, and usually you do sports. And sports is about aggression, right? You're kind of still competition and aggression. So he was looking at bringing arts into that to give them creative, whether it was painting, music, as a way of expression. So do you have examples in your lives of how your medium has helped shape your journey, or like a time where it's helped you over a challenge, and how others maybe be able to use it that way?
Oh yeah. I was a musical theater major in school. Singing for me is like on the mental side very therapeutic for me. So like even just singing in a practice room in the city, like in a box, is so nice because I'm just expressing my voice with no one around, and the frequency's there, and it's just like this beautiful experience for myself. Improv has actually been really beneficial for me in the real world because it's all about saying yes and. So I really carry that through, because when you're listening truly and responding truly, then that is the way in which you can stay mindful through life, in my opinion, because when you're saying yes and to everything, like here I am starting a nonprofit organization. I had an entrepreneurship minor in college. I'm going to speak at my college this Friday, and I'm going to tell these young people, like, just say yes and to life, because that's how you should do life. Like, there is so much to try to control about life, and the minute you try to do that, it seems so out of control. So I would say, yeah, like improv is this form of self-expression that has carried me through a lot of like life's moments when I'm feeling fearful or feeling anything, or even feeling really happy, just like knowing that balancing that is really important too. And so.
And then how can we create a more global conversation using media? So right now, we're each using from like music and film, obviously, we're looking at brands and the power of telling impact stories. How can we show the private sector and some of these other stakeholders the power of embracing media? Because I think youth kind of get media and they understand the power, but the stakeholders who actually need to spark the change and sometimes have the capacity to do the change are not necessarily as embracive. I always see sometimes art's kind of getting pushed to the side, right? Like it's the ROI is very clear in some other fields and some other projects and ventures. So how can we show brands and stakeholders the value of investing in conscious content and media?
Can I take this one?
Yes.
Okay. I think it all starts with the consumer. I think, for example, like I like to bring up Victoria's Secret and how sometimes they cannot be very inclusive, and the statement that I think the CEO said about transgender women not being a part of the fantasy. I think that's why they're not doing as well, because the consumer wants to see diverse groups, and they want to see different colors and shapes and sizes and skin tones and ethnicities and everything. So us as like the artists, that's what the consumers consume. So we have a big voice in that.
That's a very good point, and it is true. We just talked about earlier about how your purchase power is a vote, essentially, for everything. So it really changes everything. You think every time I use a credit card or I make a purchase that I'm voting for that brand, it could really change how you make decisions.
I have an answer to the question you asked a minute ago about the art being a expression and a release. And depending what you believe, but not to be too deep, but I believe that we are channels, right? And we're getting. When I hear a song, before I sing it, before I record it, I hear it. So it's coming from somewhere. And so I feel like when we have that flow going through us, if we don't let it go through us, if we don't go in that room and sing, if we don't create our content, we stop the flow and we get depressed or we get anxious. And so many people you see that with, like you said, where, people are trying to not sure how to get that extra energy out of them because there's a flow and they're blocking the flow. So I feel like through encouraging other artists to create and to let that happen, we keep that flow coming through us and we can feel relaxed and at ease. So I think it's important. Anyone who's out there who's creating, don't block the flow. You're going to get depressed. Trust me, it's going to be bad. So let it flow,
With that being said, I actually think that's a great segue that if we do have the video queued up, we could maybe all get our flow. That makes sense. Get it on. So we can put the SDG group video back on and we can learn the dance. So we'll cue it back on. I don't know if we should probably...
It's going to release on Monday, but here's the pre-release.
So this is a sneak peek.
Yeah.
Wow. That's some advanced dancing.
Living in poverty,
We got some change to spare.
ain't got no food to eat.
We got some we can share.
You got a belly ache,
We'll get you medicated.
you gotta make the grade.
We'll get you educated.
He, she, they, you are welcome here.
Thirsty, well, ooh, the water's clear. Ooh, we got a lot to do. Hot goals, let's take control now. Ooh, we gotta get a move on to get your groove on. Turn up the energy because we're solar powered.
In this economy, we're working by the hour.
I got a great idea. We need to innovate.
And if we talk it out,
Maybe
we'll all live equally.
we'll build a new community.
When we consume responsibly.
Ooh, we got a lot to do. Hot goals, let's take control now. Ooh, we gotta get a move on to get your groove on.
Now she's going to teach us the dance. So everyone,
This is the
she's
tutorial.
going to teach us the dance. I'm going to learn it. Am I just doing this alone?
Cut again. Make a box. Rotate the box. And group it out.
We can do
that
that.
once slow and once fast with a little fancy. Fast it looks like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. 1, 2, 3.
We can do it. We can do it. I almost got it. You should be the expert in this. We gotta rehearse this next time. It's like circle, box.
It's been like the most fun experience for me to attempt to learn it. So, like,
Yeah.
that's why.
Well, I just love it because at the end of the day, it's just you had diversity in that, and it's all about inclusion. But you're also educating on the SDGs. If you notice, every SDG was in that. So by now, if you leave this event or this live stream, you should at least know what the SDGs are, if anything, and have a little bit of a fun dance. But thank you guys. I really appreciate your time on the panel and also really using your platforms for impact and good. At the end of the day, media is the core outlet to create the awareness that we need. And the awareness has been mentioned on every single panel as the first spark to creating any of the change that we're looking to do. So you play an important role in that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.